I'm Jordan Tolbert, and here's an update on everything that's happening surrounding the anti-ICE protests in LA. Hundreds of National Guard troops and Marines mobilized to counter protesters in Los Angeles today. It's part of a back and forth between President Trump and California Governor Gavin Newsom. Yesterday saw far less chaos than before, with no reports of major clashes between law enforcement, troops, and protesters. President Trump says he's sending in more federal troops to the area. 1,700 members of the National Guard are now in Southern California, with another 2,000 set to arrive soon. This is in addition to another 700 Marines who were deployed yesterday. This morning, the head of the Marine Corps telling Congress that the battalion deployed to Los Angeles is already there and ready to follow the orders, but clarified they haven't been called to respond yet. He added that the Marines have no authority to make arrests. And in the background of all this, a showdown brewing between President Trump and Governor Newsom, with Trump now publicly supporting the idea of arresting Newsom. This as Newsom pushes a major lawsuit against the Trump administration to remove the troops. So with that, let's get to ABC's Perry Russum with more.
Good morning. Governor Gavin Newsom has been in a back and forth with President Trump, and the governor with a clear message to Trump saying, just get it over with, arrest me. This morning, President Trump sending 700 Marines to Los Angeles amid the protests against immigration and customs enforcement. The Marines will support the nearly 1,700 National Guard troops already on the ground, some seen here protecting a courthouse.
The introduction of federal military personnel without direct coordination creates logistical challenges and risks confusion during critical incidents.
LA's police chief says most of the protests in the city have been peaceful. He says those who engage in violence or vandalism will be arrested. LA Mayor Karen Bass says the federal government's response is contributing to the chaos. It comes as peaceful demonstrations against ICE are spreading to other major cities nationwide, including Atlanta, Chicago, and New York.
We are not criminals.
California Governor Gavin Newsom now in a war of words with President Trump after Trump expressed support of arresting Newsom. California has sued the Trump administration. They are trying to stop the deployment of National Guard troops and Marines. The mayor says they are only protecting 2 federal buildings downtown. Perry Russum, ABC News, Washington.
Thank you, Perry. Well, let's take a closer look at those arrest threats. Trump accusing Newsom of interfering with federal law enforcement, and border czar Tom Homan suggesting that arresting Governor Newsom. Here's what the governor had to say to Homan on Sunday.
The fear, the horror, the hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn, but I care about my community.
And here was President Trump's response at the White House.
I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
And House Speaker Mike Johnson is supporting Trump's statement, saying in part, quote, what Governor Newsom has done is a complete dereliction of duty as usual. While in an exclusive interview, To The Point host Alex Bell spoke with Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, who would take over as governor if Newsom were arrested. So Alex asked her how seriously people should take the statements from President Trump supporting Newsom's arrest.
There's absolutely nothing that the governor can be arrested for. He hasn't broken the law. He hasn't done anything wrong. So again, it's just all part of this chaos and things that are extremely deeply disturbing and very disruptive for people in their lives.
Are there any conversations being had about what would that mean for your role as lieutenant governor if that were to happen?
Look, it's just all bizarre. If the president were to order for the governor to be arrested for no reason, I would imagine I would probably be right behind the governor and then my successor behind them. I mean, none of this really makes any sense. There's no legal framework or justification or precedent for any of this. And so again, when I think about people watching right now trying to make sense of it all, it's very difficult because there is no precedent and there is no foundation within the rule of law for any of this.
And we know the National Guard's already there. Now we're hearing that Marines are being deployed over the next 24 hours. What is the state doing to de-escalate tensions right now in Los Angeles?
He's sent these ICE agents into places of work indiscriminately, taking people into custody, regardless of whether or not they know, in fact, whether they're documented. And all of this, as we know, has generated what, as of yesterday, were relatively small and mostly peaceful protests, which, by the way, where in the circumstances where they were becoming not peaceful, local law enforcement fully had the capabilities to respond. But instead, again, here is Donald Trump escalating, throwing fuel on the fire, saying that this is, akin to the LA riots of many years ago, taking control of the National Guard, which, again, the governor is sued because there is no precedent, and this also appears to be highly illegal.
And Rockland Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley spoke out about the protests in LA on the floor of the House last night. Here's what he had to say.
The scenes we are seeing in Los Angeles right now are absolutely horrifying, and California's radical political leadership has done everything possible to usher in this chaos.
And we continue to follow reaction to the recent events unfolding in Los Angeles. On Monday, both Democratic and Republican state lawmakers held news conferences addressing the protests in LA and President Trump's use of the National Guard. ABC 10's Becca Habegger has their reaction.
This federal government, they not like us.
That's Democratic Assemblymember Tina McKinnon of Inglewood denouncing Trump sending the California National Guard into Los Angeles amid protests against federal immigration raids.
We have a simple message for current President of the United States. Stop. Just stop.
On Monday, more than 24 Democratic state lawmakers, many from the LA delegation, gathered to voice their opposition to Trump deploying the California National Guard against Governor Newsom's wishes.
Trump claims to be concerned about the safety of Angelenos, but that is a lie. This is not about law and order, because if it was about law and order, he would listen to our local law enforcement. Instead, Trump wants chaos. He wants disruption.
Some say if federal officials arrest Governor Newsom,
he's going to have to arrest every single one of us. We all took an oath that we take seriously to uphold and defend the Constitution. We do not. What you are seeing from this president, and it's hard to call him a president in this moment because he's acting like a dictator, is he is trying to jail political opponents.
Republican Assemblymember Joe Patterson said he doesn't think arresting the governor is the right thing to do.
As much as I disagree with him trying to stoke hysteria into the LA region, I don't think he necessarily should be arrested for that. But I think it's important that he shows more leadership and he stops creating all this hysteria.
More than a dozen Republican state lawmakers held their own news conference Monday, focusing on the budget but also addressing the protests in LA.
Right now, I'm concerned about our frontline law enforcement personnel in Los Angeles, but I'm concerned about everyone caught in the crossfire.
They criticized the agitators who are causing destruction, burning cars and throwing objects at federal officers. They say Governor Newsom has failed to contain the chaos.
And anti-ICE and immigration rights activists took to the streets in Northern California yesterday. We spoke with people at Cesar Chavez Park in downtown Sacramento.
I see people being ripped off the streets by people who don't identify themselves, and I see the president calling in the National Guard against American citizens and threatening to call in the Marines against national citizens.
And after arriving at the ICE building, demonstrators held a rally calling for immigrants to be treated with dignity and respect. ABC 10's Garjpal Sangha has more from protesters at the Capitol last night.
It wasn't just a rally. It was the end of a grueling journey. Dozens of immigrant families and advocates walked for 3 days, from Vacaville to Sacramento, demanding real immigration reform.
In order to stop the deportations and the Gestapo-like enforcement tactics imposed right now by the Trump administration, and to shake some sense into our country.
Organizers say the 40-mile trek through Dixon and Davis symbolizes the struggle immigrant families face daily, living in fear of being torn apart.
When we see the photos of children who are handcuffed or torn from their mothers, it's unconscionable, it's inhumane, it's immoral.
Marchers called for the end of ICE raids and a clear path to citizenship. For first-time marcher Blake Kleinman, it was eye-opening.
They are not criminals. They are hard workers. So I think we should all fight for immigration reform at the end of the day.
Labor unions also stood in solidarity. SEIU members rallied behind their president, David Huerta, who was just released after being arrested in LA.
It is a great feeling for, my brother David Huerta to be released. But at the same time, it's, we have a lot of work to do because the arrest shouldn't have happened at all.
And even after the march ended, the message remained loud and clear.
We're going to come out here and represent our immigrant community and demand an end to deportations and demand a pathway to citizenship for all of us.
Those who march want California to live up to its sanctuary state label, and also they want to put a stop to old prisons from being reopened to house immigrants. Reporting from the state capitol, Garj Paul Sunga, ABC 10.
Garj Paul, thank you. And that is the latest for now. Make sure to stay with ABC 10 for updates on the protests, troop deployments, and threats to jail California's governor. We have live newscasts this evening at 5 and 6. And meantime, you can always get the latest on the ABC 10 mobile app. And of course, you can keep it right here on the ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. We'll have live video of protests as well as news conferences from officials and lawmakers both in California and Washington, D.C.